Welcome to another episode of the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm Michael Walker, your host for this episode. Before we get started, I want to thank all of our incredible listeners from the United States, Canada, and around the globe. Your continued support means everything to us. A special thank you also goes out to our sponsor for this episode, Equa Marketing. With nearly 20 years of experience, Equa Marketing is a leader in digital marketing services for aesthetic practices. They are offering our listeners, you, a complimentary digital marketing consultation, which includes a tailor-made 12-month digital strategy for your practice. You'll be able to head over to www.businessaesthetics, that's all one word, .org/MSM to book your consultation. You'll find that link will also be where you picked up this podcast, and you'll be able to click on that as well. But without further delay, let's dive into our topic for today, aesthetic solopreneurship, rethinking the business model of medical aesthetics with Ignacio Fanlo. It is great to have you with us, Ignacio.
Great to be here, Michael.
Well, I'm going to share just a couple of things about you, if that's okay, and I'll promise not to tell any lies. Yeah. Today, I'm certainly excited to welcome Ignacio. He's a seasoned entrepreneur and innovator who's challenging the traditional frameworks of how aesthetic practices operate. Looking forward to hearing more about that. While many clinics follow a conventional W-2 employee model, Ignacio believes the future of aesthetics may lie in a more decentralized, flexible approach. What he calls, as we just said, aesthetic solopreneurship. In this episode, we'll explore why so many talented providers feel held back by current structures, why business model friction, not HR, is often the real issue, and how regulations and professional fear are slowing down a natural shift that's already happening in similar industries like haircare. Ignacio, it is great to have you here. And let's start by setting the stage. Why do you think the aesthetic industry has been slow to embrace solopreneurship, especially when other service industries have already made the leap?
Well, I'm not 100% sure why. I could tell why individual providers and why that side hasn't happened. But the truth is there are other business models like ours out there. It was 5 or 6 years ago when I ended up starting this company, and I've been part or founding or starting team member for 5 startups now, most in Silicon Valley. And I saw this problem, this statistic really, that kind of astounded me. And that was in hair care in the early 90s. It was traditional W-2 and before that. And that by 2020 or so, it had transitioned to 95% of hair salons in the US were actually no W-2 employees. They were just rent-a-chair model. I don't know if that's the way it is in Canada. I know it's this way in a variety of other countries around the world. And the reason for that is simple. I found out about it. I went out and spoke to almost 24 hair salon owners. And one female owner in particular was crystal clear about it. She really simplified it for me. She said, well, I have a question for you. She said, do you have a hair stylist or hairdresser that you are loyal to and go to all the time? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, her name's Jeannie, and I've been seeing her at least 15 years now. And she said, well, the follow-up question is, have you seen her at one place or 2 or 3 places? And I said, I can't recall, but it's at least 2 or 3. She's moved around a few times. And she said, well, you've answered your own question. You're loyal to her, not to the salon. So the salon, since it has no loyalty from the customer, it really has no customer. It's not, it's not like a Dunkin' Donuts or a Home Depot or a Starbucks, or where you don't go because of the employee, you go because of the brand and the products. But with hairstyling, you go because of the individual doing it. So hair salons figured out over the course of 20 or 30 years, this is complete insanity. We are feathering the nest of someone else's business. And so we should just be a landlord and, help, with basic platform stuff, a hairdresser's chair, sinks, supplies, perhaps on a group basis. And I said, hey, let me find another vertical that has a similar profile, customer profile, and let's see if it's been disrupted. And I found two right away. The one that maybe was obvious was personal trainers, because you're very loyal to your personal trainer. I don't have one, but my wife does. She found him in California, and now she does virtual trainings with him so you don't need a physical location. So that's an easy one. For disrupting is harder on a geographic specific basis. Then the other one that was not quite as big as hair care, but was growing instead of 1 or 2%, close to 15 or 20%. And I could talk about that for a long time, but more importantly, it was growing super fast. And I went and started asking med spas why they didn't do it. And then at conferences, and what they told me was, well, I have an HR problem. I hired 10 injectors over X period of time, and 8 are mediocre or bad, and 2 are really good. And not necessarily really good injecting, technically, but they're really good at customer service, really good at customer follow-up and retention, good at creating a positive atmosphere. And so those 2 do great. They're a huge boon to the business, and sure enough, they leave. And they say, I have an HR problem. I said, no, you have a business model problem. You have no customers. They're just highly skewed, like almost everything's 80-20 to the 20% that are good. And you're just, the other 80% that are there hanging around, they view this as just a chore, a job. The other ones are like, this is a career. I'm motivated by it. I love this field. I love this happy nursing. And they can do a lot better on their own. So let's create a model. It's much more complicated than hair care. But let's create a model that is a platform for them to get products. And these are, some of these are, controlled substances like neurotoxins. So it takes time and energy, the regulatory, the legal, create the platform for the payment processing, for the inventory management, for the scheduling. Now we're building an AI-enabled EMR that we're going to offer for free, group purchasing, create all the tools for someone to create a fantastic business. And I can say confidently the top 20%, not half, but not 1 or 2%, top 20% of our renters, either at our places or our third-party places, we have 44 locations, are earning upwards of $250, $300 an hour. It's that high a margin business. It's that lucrative. And it's 3 to 5 times what they would make as an employee. So it's a very clear jump for an established injector. Not so much for a new one. We could get to that, I think, in some follow-up if you'd like. But let me stop there for a second.
Yeah, you explained that really well, Ignacio. For me, as an outsider looking in, I was thinking my own experience with my hairstylist. You're right. I would answer the question the same way you did, and sure enough, I remember following him around.
Yeah,
to different locations. But it's interesting though. I remember him. He at one point he bought a building.
Oh, okay.
And he had 2 or 3 stylists in there working, and then he sold it, and he converted his house, the lower level of his home, this beautiful, into his studio.
Yeah.
And I didn't make any difference. But I remember asking, why'd you do that? Like, what happened? He says, well, it was exactly what you said. I said, well, I had no customer. You're my customer.
Yeah.
The building's not my customer. I didn't want to have a relationship with the building. I wanted to have a relationship with you. And so I'm trying to, by extension, have these relations with all these people, but there's no loyalty. It was like exactly what you described. It was like, I've literally watched that. And that guy's, he just retired last year. I have a new guy, but it's, I think the loyalty to the brand, who's the stylist is the brand, or do you have a commitment to the building, the shop?
No, it's to the stylist. Like, at our place in Boston is a good example. That was our flagship initial location. We have a board outside also, so it's clear from a legal perspective. We're not the business. You hear the list of our top, we have like 60, 70 injectors there, and we rotate it every quarter or so, and we hear the top 10 providers listed here right on the board. in a really nice, beautiful way. Our brand is on the inside, but you can think of it as like powered by Intel or something. That's what we are. We're the platform behind it. Or Marriott. That was my initial business model that I wanted to follow. So most people think of Marriott as a hotel company, and that's not what they are. They're a managed services organization. They split off into two. You probably know this. They split off into two 30, 40 years ago. Half was a REIT with the real estate, and half was this MSO. And that's the way I like to think of MSO, not the legal structure and aesthetics. But anyway, now that's it's a multi-$10 billion organization. It's a monster with 30 or 40,000 managed hotels, including Ritz-Carltons and W and all those.
Yeah, that's my brand. Actually, the way background is, I went to Cornell. My background is the hotel and food and business and in luxury brands. So I'm very intimate with what you're talking about. But to me, they were I was helping position a Canadian, which has now an international brand. And what we were trying to do was really position it. Is our whole mission and vision was to unexpectedly delight the client in a way that they can't wait to come back with their friends.
There you go.
Unexpectedly delighted meant that we empowered different people to be the face of the organization, not the ones that are traditionally. And in that case, it was the housekeepers who actually would see that the Mars bar wrapper and the garbage in the empty Coke can, and the next night when the guest would arrive, would find a Mars bar and a Coke on their counter.
Wow, that's smart.
And we shifted the entire industry in the luxury brand by doing simple things like that, and we did some pretty exotic stuff. But having said that, though, in that case, the housekeeper is the stylist.
That's right.
And you can do that now in the Marriott brand. They created a community, a culture of that, and it was empowered from the top down. It wasn't just, it was actually inculcated its way up, but it was powered from the top down. The question is, there could be salons that have somebody's really passionate about creating a community and then bringing everybody in, and you become part of that community. You love being part of that, and you're engaged, and you're not looking to take your clients and go somewhere else. There's a scenario that makes sense of that in where that works for people. But if you didn't have that, then what are and this is a question I think to you. So what are the things that if let's just say I'm thinking, okay, I like what you're saying. So what does that look like for me? I'm an injector, and I want to come in and what's at risk for me to do this? And then what is it that you're doing for me that I won't have to do for myself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to complete one thought on the hotel thing. It's super interesting you brought it up, or riffed on Marriott when I mentioned it. I actually describe us to most people in the beginning as an Airbnb for medical space now, because some of the space that we're using for rent, so we have one of our owned and operated locations, 43 third parties using our platform. And we'll probably add another 100 or 200 because of a couple of large deals we're working on before the end of the year. But anyway, we have dentists, orthodontists on the supply side of space, as well as med spas. And we have on the buy side, that's almost exclusively injectors. But we have a couple wellness providers like concierge medicine who want to rent the space. So what do we bring to the table that you couldn't bring for yourself? Well, ours is complete marginal cost. You don't have to do a lease for a year, 7 years. You can rent ours by the hour. That's it. And you don't have any minimum hours. It can be 0. It's like an Airbnb in that way, right? So second of all, we have a really attractive product pricing. So if you were Jane Doe or John Smith, injector putting out your own shingle, you would either have to buy tens of thousands of product every single month or quarter to be able to get decent prices. We can get you, because we buy millions a year, we can get you our price. That's what we do. We give you our invoice price. You get it for buying one vial, for one product, and you're taking advantage of our group purchasing power. We give you payment processing. We give you scheduling for your rooms as well as scheduling for patients. We're giving you visibility into your accounting and financial systems, and a repository, as well as a place where we can direct you to medical directors if you need a supervising physician and state insurance. So we're providing soup to nuts. What you got to bring is your passion and your clients. If you bring those two things, pretty much everything else is taken care of for you. It's a business in a box. But again, I think the marginal piece and also the flexibility. If you worked as a W-2 employee, as opposed to putting out your own shingle, you get certain hours. Here it's like work when you want. If you're making $250 an hour, you're working 10 hours a week, take a few weeks off and, go to Italy in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see the economy of scale easily in this and the pricing thing.
Yeah.
And tell me a little more about what does the front of the house support look like? I mean, to me, we're just talking about customer experience and the concierge side of things and the unexpectedly delighting and all that. What does that look like in your model?
Well, in the one we have in Boston, we have a full-time person there who's been there 5 years, can work with each of the providers, getting training for either the injectables or each of the devices. So ours is a little special. The front of the house doesn't really matter anything like I thought it did. Because I experienced it with our owned and operated. A lot of times the client, because they have such tight relationship, the client and the injector are texting right up to the minute. They come to the front door, they greet them, and they take them back to the room and treatment area. They don't really need us for much. We supply some Poland Spring and some mints, and we clean the bathrooms and the spaces, keep everything neat and tidy, take care of the medical waste. But that's after they're set up. A lot of people are daunted, like, oh, I got to create an LLC. Here's a checklist. I got to get a medical director. Here's an intro to 2 or 3 with a couple organizations. Where do I get insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? What are the different products? Well, we'll connect you with our rep. We can talk to you about the pros and cons, get really granular. I mean, you could all do it on your own, except for the group purchasing. You can't do that on your own. But all the other things, it's people like having guidance, because it's like any analyst. I mean, you just, even if it doesn't do anything different for you, it validates that you're on the right path.
Yeah, and with this, when we're talking about the obviously the injectors, if I had what would it look like if I had a med spa, and I'm kind of wondering when I have empty space, busy, I'm not having to replace people. Of course, that makes HR, as you said right at the outset, HR is my problem, which is not what it is, but that's where you're thinking, like, how do I keep people? How do I do this? What's your advice to somebody in a situation like that? What are their options? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I tell them to stop the insanity. I mean, well, I'm just saying that is literally the definition.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah,
of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's just insanity. I don't know what else to say. Like, you explain it to them, they get it. They don't want to believe it, in some cases, because they've made an emotional commitment to the idea of doing it the old-fashioned way.
Right.
And we all know that. Listen, I mean, whether it's, marriages or friendships or relationships or organizations you're involved in, maybe the classic one might be the Catholic Church. I'm a lapsed Catholic, I'll admit it, but I was a dedicated one through high school for sure. And, some of the things that have happened there certainly haven't helped their reputation. But a lot of people still go, there's 1 billion people going, or 1.5 billion, because that's the way they do it. They can't see it another way.
Yeah. Well, that's a good example. Now that we have an American-based Pope, you're going to have to go get your membership renewed.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So let's talk a little on a couple of technical things here. And I know 34 states now grant nurse practitioners full practice authority. What's keeping the remaining 16 states from doing the same, and how is that impacting innovation in aesthetics?
I'll probably get my wrist slapped for this one a little bit, but it's always the same. It's the doctor's lobby. That's money out of their pocket. The more people that can inject, the less the people who are already in the club, want you in, right? I mean, that's the classic. There's good money by restricting supply. And if you open up supply, there's a lot of arguments about risk and fears of bad injectors. And I'm not saying they're not completely founded, but what I can say definitively is that risk isn't there mathematically, actuarially. And I'll give you two great examples. I don't know what it's like in Canada, but in the US, you have to go, certainly young people, behind the wheel training. You take a test that you have to get a certain score on in most states. And your insurance, if you're a beginning driver, is hundreds of dollars a month, $200, $300, even $400, $500 for young men in some states per month. And while driving can be dangerous, big fan of autonomous driving, but while driving can be dangerous, hundreds of millions of people do it in North America, right? So how dangerous can it be? If it was that dangerous, it'd be like everyone has had 7 guns as we're shooting all the time. So it's much more, so you go to aesthetics, and just neurotoxin training is a 1 day, 4 to 6 hour training, and insurance for a mid-level, a RN, for example, in many cases, it's under or about $100 a month. So it's less training than driving, for a nurse anyway, and less expensive than driving insurance. So the math is, to me, black and white. That it's not really that dangerous. Certainly that a nurse practitioner should be able to, they're going to be allowed to do it, but can they have the practice authority of their own so they don't need someone to supervise them and they don't need someone to sign off on their procedures? In Massachusetts, it changed during COVID. And they had a shortage of manpower, woman power at least. So they said, hey, we're going to do a temporary during COVID. NPs have full practice authority. Well, you had 2 or 3 years of that, and they go, well, what the heck? Nothing crazy happened. What the hell? Oh, well, we don't need it. Now they kept it. The nursing lobby got involved and said, hey, this is kind of baloney. So, I hate to be so cynical, but it's hard to argue with the math.
Yeah, and again, as you say, there's in our world, there's different dimensions of parts moving that have different mandates and different owners, if you will. So, without going any further and deeper in that, we're seeing that on the political level between our countries, for goodness sake. So,
God forbid, hopefully that works out.
Yeah. So, let's just talk a bit about this whole idea with for a nurse. Like, obviously, there's a reason that nurses have injected. They've gone to join a clinic or a med spa and be part of that, and either they're hesitant or resistant to the idea of working on their own, or the inherent risks attached to that, or the fear of not making enough or having to invest too much. The list goes on and on. But when you think of that kind of, and we're talking about starting your own practice is basically what you're saying. What do you think is the real barrier? What can you say to those doctors?
Yeah, after 6 years and talking to hundreds, if not over 1,000 nurses, and talking to dozens of med spa owners, and I'm pretty sure the answer is fear. I would give that a 90% probability. So if you're an established injector and you've gone, there's a term for it in the industry called spa hopping, going from one to the other. You already have done it. So hop a little over to our side. And by the way, it's not a commitment. You don't have to do it all the time. Stay where you are if you want. and start using ours. If you're a new nurse, it's even simpler. I tell them, don't quit your day job. Start small, start slowly, build up your social media presence, build up your reputation, build up your reviews, whatever it happens to be, to get your business going from a standing start with no clients. It's going to take you a full 9 to 15, 16 months to get a full-time job. And most RNs in the US have 3 shifts of 12 hours. Do this in your spare time or your extra time. And then as you build a client base, maybe peel a shift off or 2 over time, and you can transition if you want. And I can say, again, with the experience and having seen so many, in the US at least, I mean, there's millions of mid-levels, nurses, PAs, et cetera. I can honestly say close to 20% of them want to be aesthetic nurses. That's an insane number. It's probably not a great thing for the nursing or healthcare industry, but it speaks volumes. I mean, I've heard this said by dozens of them. I want to leave sad nursing, which is bedside nursing, and go to happy nursing, which is aesthetic nursing. And that's easy to see. I mean, being a bedside nurse is yeoman's work or yeoman's work. I mean, it's, the bedpans, the dying, the blood, the anger, the emotions, the grief. I mean, there's just so many difficult things that you have to do and process that it's wears and tears. I mean, burnout is very common. And that's for like a normal. You imagine being in a burn unit or oncology or pediatric oncology or a NICU, a natal. I mean, just crazy. And then you go to a place which is beautiful, is well lit, kind of bougie, and you have beautiful people, and you're making them look better and making them happy and establishing a relationship, and that's got to be uplifting. And that's a big plus. Now, why don't 20% make it, those 20%? And I can say single digits make it because I honestly believe they're scared of rejection. They don't have the self-confidence that my clients will leave with me, or my clients will stay with me, or I don't want to make 10 sales pitches to clients and have 9 of them tell me no. I mean, that's sales. If you've been in sales, it's 90% about getting no's. You don't get 50% yeses. So it's, you got to have a resilient, sort of ever optimistic attitude. And you have to not be, it's funny, I say you have to be a self-starter, and they think that's taking a list of actions and doing them fast or doing them in the right order. And like that's not a self-starter. Self-starter means you start from a blank slate. That's entrepreneurship. A lot of wannapreneurs, not a lot of entrepreneurs. And that's the difference. I think it's fear. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's fear. I mean, I get it. I mean, it's not easy to put yourself out there in any regard, right? For relationships, or friendships, for it's taking risks. And people, even though there's no evidence in the recorded history that taking no risk is not actually the biggest risk, and that things are constantly changing. But people, inertia is a powerful force.
Yeah. Well, my daughter actually is a nurse, and you're so that happy versus sad nursing. It's interesting. We've had the conversation, and she grew up around me, so she can answer the question what she's passionate about, and she has a vision for herself, and she loves working with she loves hospice.
That's good.
Which is, I couldn't do that in a heart. But she has such a gift in that. But she's seen that. But it's interesting though, what I'm hearing you say though, when I think about these, so we're thinking about those folks with the fear of the practice. Am I going to make enough money? Or it's almost like, why did you get? What are you passionate for? It kind of goes back to the core. It's kind of like the original thinking of, what are you passionate about when it came to nursing or whatever that. Well, it wasn't about it was about helping add value to people's lives. And okay, and so and you're not getting that now because of this, and this, whatever. But what are the options? What are your options of what you could do? Oh, this could be one. What we're talking about here could be this. I could be leave. I could whatever. But it's almost like it's kind of like when you use the word fear. Like in our culture, we've turned fear into a noun, into a thing. It's oh my God, it's fear. Yet there's a thing. There's healthy conflict and there's unhealthy conflict. And unhealthy conflict is when you passionately disagree and take it personally. And healthy conflict is when you passionately disagree and don't take it personally. And that's the part that most of us don't do, is to actually really contemplate what it is we really mean by we're not happy or sad or whatever that is. What is the real mechanism behind that, which is the essence of entrepreneurship. And then we look at an opportunity and say, what's at risk to do this? What's at risk not to? And does that make sense?
Oh, totally. There's a risk in not doing anything. But it's funny you said, am I going to make enough money? That's complete nonsense. That is not the real fear, because I tell them to keep their job. I don't know if you're going to succeed. I tell them the stats: 20% do great, 80% not so great. Maybe 40 or 50 are kind of muddling by, and 20 fail at it, 25%. So there's no guarantee. I don't want you to quit your job. I want you to ease into it.
Right.
So that's that thing about I'm not going to make money. That's a made up thing because you're not willing to face the fear or admit to yourself it's your insecurity and fear of rejection that's stopping you.
Yeah. Well, it's actually having enough, if you put it into the simplest terms, is not having enough faith in yourself.
Correct.
You can pull this off. And the definition of faith is believing what you cannot see will come to pass. And what's the definition of fear? Believing what you cannot see will come to pass.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Pick one. You can't live in both. They're like matching polarized magnets. For a season, you can push them together, but eventually you can't hold them. They're going to come apart. So you've got to pick one. And I think that's what I mean by breaking fear, that really looking at this thing. So let's just say, I love where we're going with this, but I think it's this idea though, but all right, if somebody was, okay, you remind me of kind of like an A/B test here, right? Keep the job, keep your clients, and then build this other piece and see what happens, and then design with partnerships like with you guys, what a migration model looks like to moving new or however we move that, And I think that's I just put my hand up long enough. I see it went up.
Oh, I was like, that wasn't me.
Yeah, that's me. So how would you recommend they start this process? Let's take it right to they're thinking about it. What are kind of the first, because a lot of people just get overwhelmed by too much.
That's why we provide the checklist. That's why we provide all these services, because otherwise it is a lot. I'm not going to lie. It's like starting this company. The first 6-8 months I did it alone. It was little pieces, like it's daunting. I'm not saying it's simple. If it was simple, everybody would do it and be wildly successful. It's not. I try not. You can tell I try not to sugarcoat it too much.
Very, very realistic.
Yeah, but in the end, do you think you can get people as clients? And they say to me they will, they can, but in the end, I think they either know down deep that's not who they are, and that's okay. I don't think because you're an entrepreneur or can sell yourself makes you a better human. That's not the point. But if you want to be in this industry, this is going to be the only path. So when I put ads for ourselves for injectors all over the country, in our locations or some of our partners, and I talk to these people, and I know there's no entry levels. They literally were the only ad, because I can look at the other place. There's no other ads. They say, we want to have a minimum of 2-3 years experience. That's what med spas say. And I say that is a white lie. What they're saying is, we need you to bring your customers with you. And, because that's the only way it works, because they're your customers and we're just basically underpaying you for your customer list on an ongoing basis. Again, I'm not sugarcoating it. That's why they go, well, I can't get a job. This is crazy. I got trained. I'm a nurse. I've been doing this 10 years. I'm blah, blah, blah. I did injections of regular injections. I know about the face. I go, that's all awesome. It's just tremendous. I'm so happy you did all those things. However, that's irrelevant. Or, it's 5% of it. 95% of it is getting the clients. It's all that matters in this industry. It's all that is important in the end. And, I feel sometimes like I'm telling nurses like this that there's no Santa Claus.
Yeah, I could see that. It definitely could be.
Yeah.
But I think the message I'm hearing is that there's an entry point that is uniquely different than the one that has been the status quo, we'll call it, the standard. Yeah. And you're offering a variation to that entry point. And then and I come back to those two questions. I mentioned it before. The two questions.
If I can interrupt for a second, it's not even a variation. The other entry point no longer exists. This is your way in, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But there is no other way. I mean, obviously there's exceptions. My mother has a business. She's going to transition it to me. A really close friend will hire me or will use me. Because the reality is, I say to them, if somebody hired you to do this, you should be paying them. You're like an apprentice. They're not going to pay you. It's like me being paid to go to college. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I that's a good way of looking at it, that it's the new normal.
I mean, they all tell me, I've talked to hundreds, I can't find a job. There's no other people take me as a newbie. And then I explain it. And I think at an intellectual level, now I can honestly say, instead of 2 years ago, 20 or 30% would like it. Some would get angry with me, honestly. And sometimes hang up. And now 80%, I say, intellectually understand it. But that's the next step, is the emotional step, and that's the tough one.
Yeah, and I think so. I always look at every organization, arguably every person is a collection of three spaces. The transactional space is about what we do and how we do it, and the relational space is about who we are and why we matter. And when those two spaces are not working well together, that's where conflict exists, and that's where all the unhealthy conflict, and that's where all the tension and all the things that go bump in the night happen in there. But when those two spaces are working well together, then that's where the creative space is. And that's where you have courageous conversation, outside the box ideas. That's where you have people that can't wait to work for you, to never want to leave, and bring all their friends and customers, and you don't know what to do with all the money. But the idea, though, is that I think what you're saying, I'm hearing, is that if the model has changed, that there's you can't look at, I don't believe you can just look at anything in one dimension or the other. If you just look at it transactionally, like GM did, build all these silos of empires, eventually they'll crash down and kill the people. Or you just build it all on relationally, all these great ideas, and eventually you just run out of money. So how do you bring those two spaces together? And I think that's the secret sauce that's almost part of solopreneurship that you're talking about, in that the art of relationships blended with the passion of the art that you're applying.
Yes.
And how do you do that? And so from that standpoint, that we're just talking equity marketing. That's a huge part that they do with your whole online presence, and build all those pieces out and do all the things that you don't need to be an expert in. But with what I just shared, does that make sense, Ignacio, in this field?
Oh, it makes a ton of sense. It's a ton of sense what you're saying. I mean, the reality is, I would say, not just in this field, you're saying you're the passion. Why am I doing this? Why am I here? It's so good. It doesn't even feel like a job. If you're like that, and you have even a modicum of extroversion, you're going to be wildly successful in this industry. But if you don't like it, or don't like what you're doing, and don't have the passion, people see that. That's why the 80% at a traditional med spa stay and the 20% that are good leave. Again, gross generalization, because the 80% that aren't doing well, they really don't want to be there. They really don't want to be there. I'm not saying they should be there. Maybe they have a lot of other commitments and family or friends or who knows, other jobs because they have they have real difficult financial needs. Not judging, I'm really not. But if you don't want to be there, that will show through to the customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've got people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
There you go.
That's right. So we need to be, that's that part that we have to be authentic and genuine and meet people where they're at, not where we think they should be. And that's the challenge. Well, as we kind of pull this together, I just, what would you like to leave with our audience? I think you've given them some great ideas, some great like if you're listening to this, first of all, if you're thinking about making a decision or you need more information, obviously now you know that cloudmedspas.com, that's where you're going to find Ignacio. But it's this idea of just what's the question you need answered, but what is the next right step? Not trying to figure the whole thing out. What is the one thing, if you're going to make a decision, I want to start now. I want to take some action. So the question to you, Ignacio, kind of your best, widest based right next step for that audience.
Yeah. I mean, the first step, and I've said this to a bunch of people, is how much do you really want to be in this industry? Yeah. Do you really want to be in? Don't do it because you want to leave something else. Do it because you want to be here. And if you really want to be here, we make it pretty darn easy to be here. But this includes certain requirements to be successful. And you can judge better than I can whether you meet those requirements. But if you really want to be here, I tell people you can be here because in my experience, being in the top 20% of something is really just about trying. I know that sounds slightly arrogant, but I'm going to quote the very first senior executive I ever met. I was very fortunate my junior summer in college to score an internship at IBM, being an engineer. And somewhere in the middle about of the 12 weeks, one of the head of Northeast or North American sales of all of IBM, very senior guy, comes in. And he says, I have a very short speech to give you. I give it everywhere I go. And after 30 years of being at IBM, I know he said, I know this is true. I don't believe it's true. And, we all took our notepads out. This is the 80s. We're going to write down the pearls of wisdom coming from this fella. And he says, number one, there's three things you got to remember. Number one, show up. You're like, okay, do I need to write that down? We're like, okay, that seems pretty easy. He said, okay. Number two, show up on time. I was like, what? Okay, he goes, number three, show up on time, ready to work. And he says, if you do all those three things every day during your career, you will be better than 95% of your peers. And he goes, I've seen thousands. Trust me, the top 5% do that every day. And they don't have to be rocket scientists. They don't have to be geniuses. They don't have to. It's consistency, it's effort, it's elbow grease, it's commitment. It's not some magic trick. And, 35 years later, I agree with him. That's been my experience too. The guy was dead right. So he's saying 5%. I'm quadrupling that. Just be in the top 20%. So don't tell me it's hard. I don't want to be like a Navy SEAL instructor. That's like 1 in 10,000. Come on. It's not hard to be in the top 20%. You're just not trying. I don't believe it. Unless you have some serious deficiency that's biological, you're not trying.
That is a great place for us to land this today, Ignacio. And I think, the Gallup came out just recently, another poll, and, the level of employee engagement is lower than it's ever been now. It's down to like 36%. And which speaks to what you're saying about those people. There's only arguably that percent of the world's ready to work. The
rest want to be that job. Maybe they want to do something else. And I hope, and to leave on a positive note, I do believe wildly in the future of that we have in front of us, not just AI and robotics. I believe in basic income. I believe we need to shift our paradigm psychologically, that work is our purpose. Work is our North Star. It's not. It never should have been. It never will be again in the future, I hope, for my children and grandchildren and others. But the future is unbelievably bright. And the beauty of that, I think, of the end result is we'll be able to focus almost all our energies, if we choose, on something we love. And that's still what you do now. But
beautiful.
You'll be able to do anything you want.
Ignacio, thank you so much. You remind me of words my dad said. He passed away last year at 91. He said, "Son, you never want to retire." And I said, "Oh, okay. Tell me more." He says, "Well, I tried 4 times. 3 times your mother sent me back to work." Says, "But the 4th time I realized I was doing it all wrong, because every time retiring is about planning to die. What I wanted to do was transition to continue to dream." And, that's the message that I grew up on, and, to transition. And so keep dreaming. And as Ignacio, boy, what a dreamer, and translating your dreams into tangible things that have the potential of changing people's lives dramatically. Just thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your thought-provoking insights on aesthetic solopreneurship and the evolving business models in our industry. It's just fascinating the way you've just broken this down and created opportunity for people to look at this differently. You've taken on decentralization, regulatory challenges, and opportunities for providers to gain more autonomy with certainly timely and critical and eye-opening. We truly appreciate your time and perspective. I also want to take a moment to thank our amazing listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We couldn't do what we do without your support. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your colleagues and friends on social media, and help us spread valuable knowledge throughout the aesthetics community. It's up to us to make the difference. Let's not wait for someone else to do it. And don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We love reviews and likes. Your feedback helps another aesthetic professional and practice owners discover our show and gain, obviously, actionable insights to grow and elevate their business. And just before we wrap up, a special thank you again to Equa Marketing, who are the sponsor of this episode. And I mentioned them earlier, with nearly 20 years of experience in digital marketing, specifically for aesthetic practices. Equa is offering our listeners, you guys, a complimentary digital marketing consultation, including a custom 12-month strategy tailored to your practice. This is one of the pieces that we're talking about, that when you set your sights on, you have a passion to make this solopreneurship move, you're going to want to have a marketing platform that reflects that you, at some level, you have some knowledge of it, but imagine having professionals who are going to pour into it for you and give you a strategy that you'll be able to start to build your plan and your practice on. So you can go ahead and visit businessofesthetics.org/MSM/, and you can go ahead and book your consultation with them. As I said, it's an hour they're going to spend with you, but I know they spend 5 or 6 hours just digging into your digital footprint or what you're planning to do and how you're looking at it, and helping set up a plan that will set you up for success. So until next time, keep nurturing client relationships, driving retention, and building long-term success for your practice. Keep in mind, Ignacio has shared with us a vision that's for not just for today, but for tomorrow. And it's one full of opportunity and hope. And on behalf of Ignacio and all of the teams at both of our operations, wishing you all an amazing week ahead. Thanks, Ignacio.
Thank you, Michael.